It's 7:06. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Will we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, welcome everybody. We are a couple of members short this evening, but they have been excused. I'd like to welcome everybody back for a new year, and in particular, of course, the new people on the Budget Committee. And I'm very proud to say that the article from the election to eliminate the Budget Committee failed by 61% of the voters in Merrimack reaffirmed that they like what the Budget Committee does. And so we are still here and all trying to do our very best to make sure that we have adequate budgetary needs and as little wasteful spending as possible. Carol and Jillian have been excused this evening. So I think it would be nice if we just went around the table here and introduced ourselves. Probably start from the left down here with our old timers.
Brian Stisser, 4th year on the Budget Committee, 3rd year, something like that. 4th, apparently.
Carl French, also go by Lee French. My 3rd year in the committee. Nice to see some new faces. Welcome.
Lori Peters, I'm now on the board, so I'm the liaison, but it's my 2nd year on as being part of this committee.
My name is Mackenzie Murphy. This is my 4th year on the BudCom, and I would just add to what Lee said. It's really nice to have some new people. So thank you, Scott and Shane, for saying yes to serving.
Chuck Mower, I actually don't remember how long I've been on the Budget Committee. I don't know, 7, 8 years, something like that. On the second go-around of a Budget Committee anyway.
Naomi Schoenfeld. I haven't counted the years either, but I believe this is my 2nd term of whatever length it has been, and it's nice to be back.
Hi, good evening. Scott Adler, 1st year on the Budget Committee.
Hello, Shane Albuquerque, 1st year, very excited.
Oh, I just made it in time.
Just in time, Ellen.
Ellen Wilson, 2nd year on the Budget Committee.
Well, all right then. The usual first order of business is a reorganization, but there's just a couple of other, I think, housekeeping things we need to take care of. I'd like to introduce our school district clerk, Pat Heinrich, whose husband served 27 years, I think it was, on the Budget Committee. Oh, well, close enough. And of course, Pat is the secretary to the Budget Committee as well. And a very skilled and knowledgeable person about school district affairs, etc. And I'd like to ask Pat if she would just go back to the election results and maybe just give us an update, because things were a little slow getting out to the public on the election results.
I've had a lot of people ask me what happened and how there was a write-in seat, and it never was really given out to the public. But basically, 2 days after filing period ended, a person who had filed for the one-year seat, one of the one-year seats on the Budget Committee, contacted me that she was unexpectedly going to be moving out of town before the election. And the problem is that once the filing period closes, everybody that's signed up stays on the ballot unless they die or they become unqualified. And unqualified means that, in this case, if she moved out of town, she wasn't qualified to take the seat. However, she was qualified until she actually moved out of town. So we had to wait until she gave me a sworn affidavit that she had moved out of town. Then we ran into the problem of, do we send out absentee ballots before she's moved out of town? Do I even order the absentee ballots before she's moved out of town? Are they going to come back in time so we can test them and send out absentee ballots? And what do you do? I spent 2.5 weeks, practically all day, every day on the phone with the Secretary of State's office, with the counsel for the district, and with the town clerk. And what you saw is that when she finally did, we ordered the ballots. Ballots came in, we sent out absentee ballots, and then I got a sworn affidavit from her, and then we had to take all of the ballots that we had in-house, which at that time was over 3,000 ballots, and cross off her name. And I had to get permission from the Secretary of State's office to cross off her name because the statute says to use pasters. Pasters are like mailing labels, and they could come off and get stuck in the ballot machines. So the Secretary of State's office said, please be very careful, but don't use pasters. Draw a line through the ballot, through her name. And yes, it also meant that there were ballots that were going to be returned that had a vote for this particular person on them, but she was unqualified. So thus it became as if nobody had filed for that seat, and therefore the person with the most write-ins was named the winner of the seat and had the opportunity to accept the seat or decline the seat. And Scott got the most write-ins, so he was offered the seat and he took the oath of office, and here he is. The other reason that you're here tonight is that a member of the Budget Committee ran for the school board and won the seat. And by virtue of being elected to the school board, even though she is the liaison for the school board this year, her Budget Committee seat is vacant. So we have to decide what you're going to do with that seat. So, but I asked Chuck for the opportunity to explain to you guys what happened and why it happened. And the rest of the story, if you're interested, is that we had 4,000 ballots, and in years past, we have had an average of about 3,300 voters come through. The election to fill Dick Hinch's seat exceeded everybody's expectations. So in order to use absentee ballots as regular ballots, which some of you saw that we did, Diane and I had to personally initial each and every absentee ballot that was left over during the day of the election so that those could be used. And then we had to run off, and it was almost 1,000 ballots that we ran off, and all of those ballots had to be hand counted. So it took 900 ballots being individually hand counted. Took a little bit of time. It was after 11:30 when we finished the school. But remember, we also ran out of town ballots, and we also ran out of state ballots. So there was a lot of hand counting going on, and it took quite a while. But as members of the Budget Committee, if you're not on the ballot, you're the people that we need to help us do that hand counting. So I know your names. I will call. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pat. So now we are going to address reorganization, and we're going to start with nominations for the chair. Do we have any nominations for the chair?
I nominate Chuck Miller.
Do we have any other nominations?
I nominate Gillian Savage.
Do we have any other nominations? Seeing none, we will proceed to vote by roll call. And
I have a question. My apologies. Can Gillian accept if in absence?
I think I would prefer to keep the nomination intact and see how we proceed. And see what reveals itself, rather than backtrack on the nomination. I think that's perhaps as fair as I can be. Once again, I'll call for any other nominations? All right, seeing none, we'll proceed with a roll call vote for chair. Pat, will you call the roll on the first candidate nominated?
Shane Albuquerque.
Chuck Mower.
Mackenzie.
I vote for Chuck Mower.
Brian.
Chuck Mower.
Lee.
Chuck Moore.
Naomi.
Chuck Moore.
Lori.
Chuck Mower.
Scott.
Chuck Mower.
Chuck.
Chuck Mower.
And Ellen.
Chuck Moore.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's 9-0-0, sir.
Well, as chair, I would declare the unanimous vote of the meeting renders any other nominations moot. Proceed with nominations for vice chair.
I nominate Naomi Schoenfeld.
Are there any other nominations?
Just for fun, I nominate Brian Stisser.
Once again, are there any other nominations for vice chair? We'll proceed until we obfuscate the need for a second round of voting. Pat, please.
Lee.
Brian Stisser.
Mackenzie.
Naomi Schoenfeld.
Brian.
Naomi Schoenfeld.
Okay. Ellen.
Naomi.
Shane.
Naomi.
Chuck.
Naomi.
Naomi.
Brian Stisser.
Lori.
Naomi.
Scott.
Naomi.
That's 7-2. Naomi.
Naomi has captured a majority, and I so declare it. Are you prepared to move?
Physically move to the front table.
That's okay. We'll let you sit there for tonight.
I'm coming down.
Welcome aboard, Naomi. Our next order of business is, in fact, how we are going to handle the vacant seat. There is nothing in the statutes that says we must fill a vacant seat, but in the past we have always decided that the more people that participate, the better off we are. And so I would ask what the committee's pleasure would be handling the vacant seat. Yes, Scott.
I would like to see that the seat be filled. In the event that we have close to a quorum situation, at least with one more person, we stand a chance of being able to have our meetings. So that would be my feedback.
Well, I think that's good counsel myself. Yeah, in the past, we've just advertised for interested citizens to come forward. I have a letter here that represents that particular position. It seems that we're interested in choosing that. It says, public notice, Merrimack School District Budget Committee vacancy. Merrimack School District Budget Committee announces that due to the election of Lori Peters to the school board, it has an open seat until the April 2022 election. The committee is looking for Merrimack residents who are registered voters and who have an interest in filling this seat for the upcoming budget year. Residents interested should send a letter of interest containing their name, address, email, and phone number to the Merrimack School District Budget Committee. Attention, Chuck Mower, Chair, care of Merrimack School District, SAU 26, 36 McElwain Street, Merrimack, New Hampshire. Letter must be received by June 1st, 2021. On June 8th, 2021 at 7 p.m. in the cafeteria at Merrimack High School, the committee will meet to hold public interviews with those who have submitted letters of interest and to determine the final process for filling the vacant seat. Anyone with questions should contact Chuck Mower at 424-1200. Is that agreeable to the committee? Do we have a consensus on that? Fair enough. All right. If you would just check your school district budget committee information sheets, and if there's any error, misinformation, or whatever relative to your contact information, please call Pat and we'll get it straightened out. If we don't hear from you, obviously we assume that it is going to be fine. I'd also like to remind members of the committee that 4 unexcused absences puts your seat in jeopardy. If you're going to miss a meeting, please call and we can get you excused. I'd like once again to have some training this fall before we suddenly get inundated with budget issues and so forth. I think there is substantive information for us to review. And of course, new people that are on the budget committee will have the benefit of knowing what the responsibilities of the budget committee are and how we undertake our duties here. Any questions? All right. I see no public out there tonight, but I'm calling for public participation. Anybody would like to come forward and publicly participate? You're welcome. I see no one, so with that, I will close public participation and open the meeting up to member comments. Is there anything any members would like to say, make us aware of, or anything else?
Move to adjourn.
Second that motion.
Oh, gosh. Well, all right then. There are a few comments that I would like to make as chair. And I believe that I'm speaking for the committee. We find ourselves in a very difficult position, having suffered the effects of COVID and so forth on our school district. And for the last couple of years now, it has impacted the way we function and has prevented us from having as close a relationship with the school board as we should have. And so there's a couple of things I'd like to mention that I think are beneficial for the school board to think about, that I hope our liaison can carry forward to their deliberations. I think we're all very concerned about education. That's why we're all here. But we're also residents and we own property and so forth. And yes, we're concerned about our rising taxes on property. And it's been a subject of debate most of my adult life. So I think I have a pretty good understanding of what has taken place and why and so forth. And at times it seems like a juggernaut that is impossible to step in front of. And yet there are things that we can do to effect a better outcome. And one of the difficulties that we've had is that we run a surplus every year somewhere between $3 million and $5 million. And that's because what we have proposed for the school district is a budget as opposed to a contract. And with careful management over time, we managed to preserve a surplus as opposed to running it right down to the last penny, or worse yet, having to go to the state for a supplemental appropriation. You just do not ever want to be in a condition where you would need a supplemental appropriation. But wise management has allowed us to return a surplus. Now this surplus goes into the general fund of the town of Merrimack. And the selectmen have, or the town council has over time, used the surplus from the school district to smooth out the tax experience and keep it relatively stable rather than having huge ups and downs that affect people unnecessarily. That's been a good management tool. But what I'd like to see the school district do in cooperation with the budget committee is establish more capital reserve funds. The difficulty with surplus is that it has to be raised and appropriated. And so, rather than putting it into the general fund of the town of Merrimack as a surplus, if we could get more of it into the real needs of the school district in capital reserve planning, I think we would be better off. And the future of our school district presents some very large challenges. There are things that haven't taken place over the last 10 or 15 years that perhaps in a more visionary situation would have been planned for. So we have a lot to do, and I think that's one way that the Budget Committee can work with the school district to save money on the back end. If it's raised and appropriated, rather than having it go into the general fund, or at least all of it go into the general fund, I think we can keep more of it preserved within the school district for important initiatives that we're undertaking. And the other thing that I would like to see is a little bit more information from the school district relative to some of the budget items. Over time, that's the way things were handled. We have an opportunity with a new year and a new board and a new superintendency to have a more intricate relationship relative to financial matters, so that we don't necessarily, when we get our budget review from the school district superintendency, we very often get large numbers that are somewhat meaningless to us, and we may ask a few questions, but I think there's an opportunity to understand the budget better when it is presented to us from the school district. So those are my thoughts, and I'm looking forward to having a more engaging year, a more productive year on behalf of the school district, and of course ultimately on behalf of all of us as citizens and taxpayers in town. So if anybody would like to respond to that, I'm all ears.
I just want to clarify. Your second request is that the school district and the school board provide more transparency and details in some of those budget items as the budget review comes up, so that the budget committee has a better look instead of just broad strokes.
I think that represents it fairly well. I'm not suggesting in any way that they haven't been transparent. And we have had opportunities to ask questions, and very often, for whatever reason, a committee person will sit there, they've heard enough, perhaps it's been a long night or whatever, and they just don't want a more penetrating question. But I know some of us are certainly capable of asking penetrating questions, and I think the answer to a more thorough examination of the financial affairs can be more productive in securing a good outcome. That's my wish, as opposed to just going along the way it's been for some time. new opportunities. Everything's different now. You know, everybody said when the pandemic was over and things got back to normal. Well, things were never going to be normal again. They were going to be new, and new opportunities. So I'm looking forward to that. And I hope that that my fellow members here share that sentiment. Well, if we have no more engagement on the issues of the committee before us, I'll ask
You
for-
have a motion on the floor.
Oh, we do? What was the motion?
To adjourn.
Oh. Sorry, Brian. It's not debatable, is it? All right, we stand adjourned.
You're going to vote on your motion?
Well, I assumed it was a unanimous consensus. By unanimous consensus, are there any objectors? I'd be happy to go on. We're all here.